Hey there, Fun Food fans. It's Karen Ricks, head chef of our kitchen classroom. And I am back again. Today's video is a review of the Virtual Worldschooling Summit Day 4. Now, for those of you who have been keeping up since the beginning, you might be wondering, well, what happened after Day 3? Day 4 didn't come immediately after, and unfortunately, as sometimes happens with the technology, as we're moving fluidly around the world, we had some technical difficulties that actually prevented us from getting online here at home. And it just happened right on the morning of Day 4. And unfortunately, because of someone literally cutting the line that ran to our apartment, we were without internet for several days here in Albania. But I am so thrilled that we made some wonderful friends in the building here and at our local telecom office, and we are back online. And because I am an all access pass holder, as I've been encouraging all of you to do since the very beginning of the series, I have the opportunity now to go back and catch up on all of those presentations that I missed. So, just like I promised you, even though it's a few days later than I had anticipated, I am back here to make a new video to review not only some of the presentations that I saw in Day 4, but hopefully to encourage you, if you haven't already done so, to jump on and grab your all access pass. This will give you the opportunity to go back and see all of the presentations from the entire Virtual Worldschooling Summit, all 5 days, and you can continue to access that as well as special bonus material from many of the different presenters all year long. Okay, so let's dive in. What did I get into on this 4th day of the Virtual Worldschooling Summit? Well, for those of you who have been following me here at our kitchen classroom for quite some time, you'll know that I didn't start off teaching in the kitchen, although I have been teaching in or working in my kitchen since I was a young child myself. But I have a long academic career, in fact, having run my own international Montessori school during the decade that we were in Japan. We started the school shortly after our little Sue was born. In fact, he was an infant on my hip, not only when we opened the school, but during the times that I toured around different parts of Japan, giving seminars and teaching other teachers. So I have a passion for traditional academia, believe it or not. Some people find this crazy as a world schooler, and a lot of people, especially when we sold it all and left Japan to begin our full-time travels as a family, loads of people asked, what are you thinking? Why would you start a school and then take your child out of school? What is that about? And so I was fascinated to dive into the 4th day of the Virtual Worldschooling Summit and really dive deeply into presentations by other academics, other people who actually, I think all 3 are PhDs, believe it or not. The first one, though, that I really got excited to listen to was Dr. Danielle Davis, who, like me, had been teaching for many, many years before her own son came along. And I had been teaching for, I think, 15 years before our little Sue was born. So it was wonderful to get into a world schooling presentation with another educator with whom I had this immediate connection. And it was so fascinating to hear her talk about some of the ways in which not only did her academic training drastically influence her own parenting, because as many long-term homeschoolers, world schoolers will tell you, in the younger ages, especially under the age of often 6 in the United States or other places around the world, wherever compulsory education begins, you don't necessarily call it homeschooling when your child is an infant or a toddler. It's parenting. But like me, like Dr. Davis, when you're an academic, your academic training does influence your parenting. And so you have parents who begin working on things like reading and writing with children when they're still toddlers, when those little fingers are grasping and when they're reaching out and curious about all sorts of things. So it was wonderful for me to be able to listen in on her chat, her talking about the ways in which her advanced scholar was really not finding the sort of enrichment, the sort of stimulation that he was seeking from a traditional learning environment. And so her desire to homeschool and eventually world school, to take travels that enrich the learning experience for their family and to really provide those sorts of enhanced educational opportunities in life was so wonderful. And the other thing that I really liked about the presentations that I dived into was it was really the sort of a nice sampling of case studies, if you will. And I guess that's to be expected from academics. But for those parents who are brand new to world schooling, to the concept of educating not just outside a traditional classroom, but outside of a lot of traditional settings, Dr. Davis provided some really spectacular examples from not only the consulting that she does for other homeschooling parents, but with her own child, where the learning that takes place was not just specifically relegated to a particular category, like the science fair example, where discussions range not just from water filtration from a scientific perspective, but move beyond to questions about economics and accessibility. And not just on a local scale, but on a national or even a global scale. And this is one of the wonderful perspectives that I think world schooling provides. It's taking things outside of the smaller box and taking a look at how not only it can enrich a young child's education, but in ways in which the material that we learn can be not just presented, but applied in a way that encourages us to think about how we can have an impact on the world around us. And so that was fascinating to listen to. But I have to be honest, the presentation that I was most looking forward to, and this was all week long, came from Dr. Peter Gray. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with his work, freedom in play and the implications of play in learning, part of the reason that I was so fascinated is I have been a long time reader of his blog in Psychology Today, talking all about the developmental benefits of play, especially in young learners. And there is so much research. There is literally a wealth of research that provides neurological and psychological and developmental benefits for free play for young children. And one of the questions that I get all the time from people who are brand new to pulling their children from a traditional learning environment and considering homeschooling is this idea that I have to make my child sit down and do this work. Because if I don't, my child's not going to be interested in anything. All he or she is going to want to do is play video games all day long. And Dr. Gray addresses that specifically. In fact, not only in the talk that he gives here, but also at an even broader extent in some of the bonus materials that you'll get with the All Access Pass. So I was really excited to be able to hear even more about some of the conversations that he has been having, a lot of the research that has been done into the beneficial aspects of play. And not just free play, not just things like running around outside and splashing in water and climbing trees outdoors, but even video games. And this is not just for young children, but for teens too. And he talks directly about some of the myths surrounding how terrible video games are. And he points specifically at a few case studies that talk about how beneficial video game play can be and all the wonderful things that happen in the brain when you play video games. In fact, our little Sue and I sat down to dive into one of his talks specifically, and he was just fascinated. I think he wants to go and give his own talk about the benefits of video game play. And talking about case studies, another question I hear all the time from people who are concerned about embarking on a homeschooling or world schooling journey for themselves is that fear of what's going to happen if and when my child wants to pursue higher education. Is that even possible? That is exactly what Kate Green addresses, and not only from her perspective as an academic, as someone who has been a dean in higher learning and has actually screened applicants for higher education and continues to teach at a university level, but also as someone who has had her own children going through the process. And so she talks about things like creating transcripts, not just diplomas, both of which were important, but two very different things. Creating transcripts and how to use the experiences that one gets from this world schooling opportunity and how to translate that effectively into the sorts of things that admissions officers are looking for in institutions of higher learning. And let's face it, we know on a heart level that there is a wealth of learning that happens outside of a brick and mortar school. But there's still that niggling fear that if we step outside the norm, then that door is going to be forever closed and it'll never be opened again. So it was great to see the perspectives. Kate Green, who was talking so much about her own experiences, but also from Dr. Gray and Dr. Davis, about just how enriching and how positive all these experiences are from an academic perspective. And I love the fact that there are other academics out there who are not just embracing, but encouraging others to embrace the sorts of brilliant learning experiences that happen outside of the traditional setting. It's one of the key reasons that I have delved so deeply into the language of food and into all the amazing multisensorial aspects that come into play when you cook with and even for your family, your children, your loved ones. Learning is the sort of thing that doesn't just happen from a book. It doesn't just happen from a conversation, but it is something that involves all of our senses. And I know, because I've seen it time and time again, the things that we talk about, the things that we think about, the things that we want to study intently are still abstract concepts until we get the concrete, till we're able to touch it, to hear it, to taste it. That's what happens with food learning. And that's why I'm so excited to open the registration for the next iteration of my signature course, the Ultimate Cooking with Children Workshop. So many different concepts that we've discussed in world schooling in general. Academic concepts, things like how to develop reading and writing skills, planning and follow through. All of these things happen in the most practical and applicable ways daily in your very own kitchen. And so I want to invite you to come and to join me in this next workshop. We start in about 2 weeks, and you'll find the details on my website at ourkitchenclassroom.com. The Ultimate Cooking with Children Workshop is an incredible way to leave behind the drudgery and the boring, I've got to get through this, just got to put food on the table and hurry on and get on with the day. And it's an opportunity to embrace all the wonderful natural learning that happens every single time you create and share a meal together. And it's an opportunity to make it intentional, to make it fun, to bring the family together in the most meaningful and incredibly memorable ways. I would love to see you inside my next cooking course, the ultimate Cooking with Children workshop. You can register today at ourkitchenclassroom.com. And don't forget, if you did get that all access pass through the Virtual Worldschooling Summit, you have access to a special discount code, but it's only good through the rest of this week. So make sure you apply early. I can't wait to see you on the inside. I will be back again tomorrow with another review for the last day of the Virtual Worldschooling Summit, and to tell you even more about our upcoming Cooking with Children workshop. Oh, it's going to be so much fun. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.